Hello, I'm Bright from BUA Vice City, and I welcome you to this video. Today, we would be looking at
Git tutorial part 2. We'll be talking about Git branching. We'll be discussing everything about Git branching, how to make a pull request, why branching is important, and how to create a branch. And so that's exactly what we'll be talking about in this tutorial. If you've not watched the first tutorial, you want to do well to watch it so that this tutorial could come naturally to you. All right, now let's talk about Git and Git branching. What is a branch? A branch is like a copy of your project. It's like having your project normally in one place and then having a copy of it. And what is the work of a branch? A branch is used to add a feature, a unique feature, where you don't have to change your whole code, but you just need to add something. Now, you can also use a branch to collaborate with other developers on the same project. So you're working on the same project with 2, 3, 4 persons, and each of you have your unique roles. Now, each person could have a branch where they put their work in. And now a branch is also used for not breaking your entire repo. So rather than touching your entire repository, you're not too sure of this thing, but you want to see how it goes, you could put it in a branch. And a branch is also useful so that you don't do something that your co-workers will not like, will not approve, and they regret it later. So rather than touching the main code that everybody has agreed on, you could create a branch and then isolate, and you have a new feature that you want to test out, or you're not so sure, you don't want it to affect your previous code. Rather than working on that code, you could leave that code in the repository and create a copy, create a branch where you can modify. And so today we'll be looking at how to create a branch locally. Now, there are two ways to create a branch, and one is to use GitHub directly. But since we have been dealing with Git and its command line, we are going to look at how to create a branch locally. So I'll go back to my terminal as usual. If you're not sure how I got here to this terminal, you want to make sure you watch the Git tutorial part 1 for better understanding. Now, how do I create a branch? First off, if you look at this, you are going to see here, it says main. This main that is in brackets represents the branch I am in right now. You can see the folder I am in, learning Git, and this also doubles as my repository on GitHub. And the branch I am in is main. So if I list out the content of my folder, you can see I have different first folder, second folder, and third folder. So how do we create a branch? I want to leave this main branch now and probably add other things that are not part of this first, second, and third folder. To do that, I'm going to use this command, git checkout -b, and then the name of the branch. So what this command does, it's going to create the branch and then switch to that branch immediately. After creating the branch, I would immediately go to the branch. That's what this command will do. So this is git checkout. The B here stands for branch, and I have to add the branch name. So let's say I name this branch tutorial underscore branch and press enter. you can see I have a message here that says switched to a new branch, tutorial branch. And if you look here, you can see what I have now is tutorial branch and not main. So this command git checkout -b is going to create the branch and then switch to the branch just as we've done now. Now, from here, I could access what I have. Now, when I list what I have, you see I have everything I had in the main branch. I still have first folder, second folder, third folder, all inside my tutorial branch. Remember the definition of a branch? It's like a copy of your project that you can modify without it affecting the main branch. So let's see how that works. I already have 3 folders here now, and I want to create another folder. So I'm going to call this fourth folder. And in this fourth folder, I'm going to, so let me cd into the fourth folder now. And I had to clear my terminal to make sure the space is clear. In this fourth folder, you can see here, I'm going to create a new file. So I'm going to be like touch and then file 1. Okay, so if I list what I have here, I have a file called one file, one and then file. I created 2 files actually with this command because when you use the touch and then do like file and then 2, what you have is 2 different files. Once you separate anything with a space, it's going to take it as another file. So if I don't want it to take it as another file, I have to use probably underscore or make sure it's not separated with a space. So I have 2 files here already, one and then file in this fourth folder. So let me cd out of this branch now. Cd out of this folder rather. I'm still in the branch called tutorial branch, but I've cd'd out of this fourth folder. So when I list what I have here in this my tutorial branch, I have first, fourth, second, and third folder. I could go ahead to create another file here. So I could just create touch file 1. When I list what I have, you can see I have file 1, first folder, fourth, second, and third folders. And in my fourth folder, I have another file. So in this copy of my branch, in this copy of the main branch, so this tutorial branch is a copy of the main branch. And this tutorial branch, I've been able to create more files. File 1, then fourth folder. So I've been able to create 1 folder and 1 file in this tutorial branch. At this point, let's say I'm working on a real world project and I wanted to add things to a code where I'm collaborating with others. So this is how to do it. I create my branch and then, go ahead to create my files in this branch. After creating everything, once again, I'm going to push my work now to GitHub and I can use git add dots and then git commit with a message, probably say created a new branch, and you can see among my commit message, I have created a new branch. And then look at what I created in the branches here. I created a folder called fourth folder and I created a file called 1. And then in the fourth folder, I created another file named file. And then I created a file 1 here too. So after this, my commit message, I'm going to push to GitHub now. And it tells me something. It says the current branch tutorial has no upstream branch. Now it's saying that to push this branch to GitHub, I have to do something. Git push set upstream origin tutorial branch. If you remember, we did this when the first time we pushed our code to the main branch. So it's saying we should do the same thing for this tutorial branch. So I'm going to just copy everything here now and then paste it down. But before that, let me clear the screen. So I'm going to paste it and press enter. And yes, so everything has gone successfully to GitHub. Now let's go to our GitHub to see what we have there. So I'm going to open my Chrome browser and go to GitHub now. All right, this is my repository, learning Git. Okay. Now you can see that I have something here. It says tutorial branch had recent pushes 1 minute ago. Of course, we did push from our terminal to GitHub 1 minute ago. But look at what we have here. It says this first folder had its last changes 6 days ago. This readme.md file had its changes 6 days ago. But here it's telling us that tutorial branch had recent pushes 1 minute ago. But here we are seeing 6 days ago. So what exactly is happening? If you look here left, you can see here it says main. So this is my main branch. If I now switch branches, if I click on this drop down, you can see I have a new branch called tutorial branch here. I could click on this view all branches and then I see tutorial branch and the main branch. So if I switch to this tutorial branch now, which I've just done, you can see in this tutorial branch, I have port folder here and file 1 here that were changes were made 3 minutes ago. And of course, everything I had previously in the first folder that I had committed from the main branch still remained in the tutorial branch. But then these updates, you can see them here in this tutorial branch. So I'm in the tutorial branch on GitHub, and now you can see folder, port folder, and then file 1. But when I switch back to the main branch, you see you cannot see port folder and file 1. So this is the work of a branch. I've copied everything I had in the main branch to tutorial branch, and then I've made updates to my tutorial branch by creating a folder, and then in this folder I have 2 files inside this folder now, and everything that is in this tutorial branch do not affect what is in the main branch. You see, when I look for this 4th folder, when I'm looking for this page now in the main branch, look at the error message it will deliver to us. I'm trying to look for this 4th folder in the main branch. Look at what it's going to tell us. It says this is not the web page you're looking for. So it's not found. The page is not found. I cannot access the 4th folder in the main branch because 4th folder is only in the tutorial branch. So if I want to go to the main branch, I cannot see anything like 4th folder. So that's the work of a branch. That's basically what it does. I hope this was clear enough to explain what a branch does and how you can push your work to a new branch. So we've talked about how to create a branch, we've talked about the work of a branch, and we've talked about how to push our work to branches. Now let's go back to our terminal. I want to view how many branch I currently have. I want to see how many branches I have. You know, I have tutorial branch, and then there's also main branch. But at this time now, I want to see how many branches I have, just to be sure. Because you could create many branches. So how do I see how many branches I have currently? There's a command to do that. Now to do that, we just have to do git branch. If we do the command git branch, we would understand what it means. Where you see the tutorial branch in green with this asterisk here signifies that this is the current branch we are working with. So this is the current branch we are currently working with, tutorial branch. And the other branch we have is main branch. Now I've made the changes I wanted to make in my tutorial branch and I want to switch back to my main branch. How do I do that? We use the command git switch and then the branch name main. So I want to switch from this tutorial branch to the main branch. I'm going to use the command git switch main. Press enter and you can see what I have here is switch your branch to main. So it has switched my branch now back to main. If you look here, you can see main. Meanwhile here was tutorial branch. So what I've just done is I've created a tutorial branch. I've added some new files in the tutorial branch and then I've switched back to my main branch. When you list out the files you have in your main branch, you would see that you don't have any folder 4. You don't have any 4th folder in your main branch, which actually corresponds to what we checked on GitHub. So using this way, I've been able to create a branch and then push our work now from that new branch called tutorial branch to GitHub. And then I've come back to my main branch and I can now do things here. So I could create a new folder here now called quick change. And then press enter. When I list out what I have in my main branch, you can see I have a folder called quick change on my main branch. Now let's switch back to our tutorial branch to see if we would have this folder called quick change there. So let's switch out back to our tutorial branch. The command once again is git switch. Now we are going to switch from main to tutorial branch. So we simply type tutorial branch, press enter, and it has switched back to tutorial branch. If I list the content of this tutorial branch, I have quick change here in my tutorial branch. Yes, I have quick change here in my tutorial branch. That is because this tutorial branch acts as a copy of the main branch. But the things I have in my tutorial branch do not go to the main branch automatically. So tutorial branch is great. To have a branch, a separate branch is great, because you can have everything you had previously on your main branch in your second branch. And now this second branch, you could use it to add new files and new folders without having it interfere with your main branch. So I hope this was very clear about Git branches. Now we can switch back to our main branch and push our work now. We've created a new folder called tutorial branch. We've created a new folder called quick change in our main branch. So I can now push my work to GitHub since I've created a new branch, a new folder in my main branch. So I can do this and then push my code straight to GitHub. So now I've pushed my code to GitHub. I've pushed what I have in my main branch to GitHub. I've also pushed what I have in my tutorial branch to GitHub. And you see, we had no worries at all. So if I go to GitHub now and refresh my page, you can see I have a folder called quick change that was pushed to GitHub about 37 seconds ago, just now. But when I change to but you cannot see the content of my tutorial branch, the new changes we had in tutorial branch, you can't see them in main. But when I go to my tutorial branch, I can see fourth folder and then file 1 here. So this is how Git branching works for a beginner level. I hope this was clear enough. Now in Git, there's another thing called a Git pull. So a Git pull is primarily used to bring the content of our work from GitHub to our local repository. Now, this may not make a lot of sense, but let's see it practically. So I'm going to go to my GitHub now. And in this main branch, so let me go back to my main branch. In this main branch, I'm going to edit a file from GitHub. Okay, so this is how to edit your files from GitHub. Probably I want to edit this README file. I'll just click on this pencil icon here. And you can see it allows me to edit file now. So anything I write here, I could just write I am editing a file. So I wrote I am editing a file there. And then after that, I could come here now to commit changes. So what just happened is that I've done something. I've pretty much edited a file from GitHub. Rather than do it from the terminal, remember we can do this from the terminal. We can go into our readme.md and edit our files there. But I've done it from GitHub directly. So if I come to this learning Git now, you can see my readme.md was updated 28 seconds ago, just now, from GitHub rather than our terminal. So I didn't do git add, git commit, git push. So sometimes when you need to be fast and you need to do some quick edits, you could do it directly from GitHub here. But would have a problem. For example, now in my terminal, let's look at what we have here. So in my README file, I have this repo helps us learn about Git. I am editing a file. This is what we have on our GitHub. But let's check the readme.md we have in our terminal. So I'm going to cat readme.md and look at the message I have in my readme.md file on GitHub. It says this repo helps us learn about Git. Meanwhile, on GitHub, I have extra information. I am editing a file. If you remember, I wrote this information here from GitHub. So we don't actually have this repos, this I am editing a file that we have on GitHub. We don't have it on our local device. So on our local machine here, we don't have it, but on GitHub, we have it. It may seem like that's no problem, but it will become a problem if we try to push any other thing to GitHub. So for example, let me create a new file called problem, and let me try to push my work now to GitHub. It's add git commit-m, and I'm going to title this pull requests. Now let me try to push this file to GitHub and watch what will happen. Okay, so you see that we just got an error. It says rejected. Failed to push some refs to my GitHub account. This is the first time we are having this. It has rejected my request to push this thing. Now look at more updates here. It says these updates, that is what I wanted to push right now, were rejected because the remote contains a work that you do not have locally. Now, this is just the explanation of what I said. In our system here, we have a README file that says, on our system, our README file says, this repo helps us learn about Git. But on GitHub, we have an updated file says, I am editing a file. So our GitHub account here is more up to date than our terminal. And Git is complaining. Git says, I cannot push new updates here from this local terminal to GitHub because I don't have, because my local terminal is not up to date. So that's what GitHub is complaining about. So how am I going to solve this problem? It says you may first want to integrate the remote changes. So it's telling me that those changes I made from my GitHub accounts when I did that commit message from GitHub directly, I should integrate them to my local repository first before pushing my new work to GitHub. So how am I going to integrate those changes? This is the command to integrate it, git pull. So this is actually making a pull request. So if I come here now down below and I do git pull, I would be making a pull request. What this command will be doing is to tell what I have on my repository on GitHub that everything there should come locally to my machine. So it's as if I'm committing from my repository on GitHub to my local machine, to my terminal. Meanwhile, what we are supposed to be doing is commit from our terminal to GitHub. But in this case, what I'm doing is I'm getting jobs from GitHub to my terminal. And that's called git pull. It's a pull request. If I was going to send updates from this computer to GitHub, that would be git push. But now I want to collect updates from GitHub and put in my terminal. I have to use git pull. So I'm going to press enter now. And now it says it has merged the branch main of GitHub. So what this message simply means is that everything I have on GitHub are the same thing I have on my terminal now. So what I can do with this message is that I can quit out of here by simply pressing the escape key and then :WQ. So see the command now. Once this line comes up, I could simply, because this line is in VI here, I could simply exit VI by using the :WQ. And now I'm back to my terminal. At this point, if I try to push, everything should work well. So let's try that. Git push, I pressed enter and everything is 100% done. So you see that I don't have a rejection again like I previously had, because I pulled what I had from GitHub down to my local machine. So this is how to git pull. If it's not clear, you want to go back to the part that's not so clear for you and try to understand it better. So what have we talked about so far? We've talked about how to create a branch, why we need a branch, how does a branch operate on Git, how to push your branch to GitHub, how to switch from your branch back to your main branch, and we just talked about how to pull your work from GitHub to your local repository and then push everything back to GitHub. So, assuming I want to make my tutorial branch and my main branch become one, so have the same thing in them. That is, when I switch to tutorial branch, I want to see everything I have on my main branch here. So this fourth folder that I have here now, when I go to my main branch, I also want to see this fourth folder on my main branch. How do I do that? There's something called merging in Git. So I'm going to merge what I have in my tutorial branch with what I have in my main branch. If I merge the two of them together, it would mean that everything I have in my tutorial branch, I'm going to have it on my Git branch. So that's the concept of Git merging. So let's go to our terminal now and see how we can merge or join what we have in our tutorial branch with our main branch. The command to merge a branch is git merge, and then the name of the branch you want to merge. So this is how it works. I'm in my main branch. I cannot merge main. It's impossible to do this. So I could only merge another branch. Now, you remember how to know how many branch we have? This is the command git branch. And I'm currently my main branch. We have another branch called tutorial branch. So I want to merge this tutorial branch now to main branch. So I'm going to do git merge and then tutorial branch, because this is what I want to merge. I want to merge tutorial branch to this main branch. So to do that is git merge tutorial branch. Right. So I'm going to press enter now. And once again, it says I should enter a commit message to say why this is necessary. I'm just going to save and quit. And you can see that everything it has successfully merged. It says merge made by the ORT strategy. So it has merged what I had before in my tutorial branch with what I now have in my main branch. So if I push to GitHub now, everything successfully worked. So that's how to merge a branch on Git. Now let's see whether this thing we've done just worked. So let me come here now and refresh. And you can see in our main branch we have first folder, fourth folder, file 1. Can you see we have everything we had on our tutorial branch on our main branch now? So if I come to main and then go back to tutorial branch, we also have everything we have normally here. First folder, fourth folder, readme.md, and file 1. So I've been able to merge what I had on my tutorial branch with what I have in my main branch. This is how to do merging, git merge. So git merging is actually very simple. Git merging is going to bring what you have in tutorial branch with what we have on our main branch and put the two of them together. That is the concept of git merging. Lastly, we are going to talk about adding a gitignore file. To create a gitignore file, we have to use the .gitignore. So this command here, .gitignore, is going to create files that we can put things we want Git to ignore. So I can press enter now. And then if I vi into .gitignore, I've used vi to open this gitignore. So if you don't know how to use vi or how to work with vi, you could also check this same channel. I have a tutorial, a very beginner friendly tutorial for vi. Here now I can write things I want GitHub to ignore. All right, so let me push this now to GitHub. And I could simply write git ignore, and then go ahead to push this to GitHub now. All right. So basically that's it for this tutorial. We've talked about quite a couple of things. We've talked about Git branching, why we need a branch, how to create a branch, how to update contents in a branch, how to merge a branch, how to push a branch to GitHub, how to switch from a branch back to your main branch. We've also talked about how to create a pull request, why we need git pull sometimes. And then we've talked about the .gitignore files, which basically ignores other modules or components we don't need in our GitHub. And basically that's all for this tutorial. So we've discussed quite a lot. To get access to the previous tutorial, all you have to do is check this channel, and the link to the part 1 of this video would actually be posted in the description. So you just have to check this description and check my channel for other interesting videos, explanatory and straight to the point. If you have any questions, any constructive criticism, anything that's not too clear, please share it with me and I will be happy to take a look at it. For now, it was a wonderful time doing this with you, and until next time, it's a goodbye.